8:30, so we'll call 16th, 2023 EDA meeting to order. I'll be looking for a motion to approve the agenda for today.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And opposed? And I'd also be looking for a motion to approve the October 19th EDA meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? All right, I think that motion carried. We're gonna go with that. All right, so we have Teresa Hafner here today from the Big Lake Economic Development Department. Actually, she's the Community Development Director up there to give an update on what's happening in Big Lake.
Yeah, so thank you for allowing me to speak. Here. So one of the things that, just like the Sherburne County EDA, that is a priority to us.
Try right at the box.
There we go. Is a priority to us is not only to grow and expand new business, and whether it's commercial, industrial, but also to make sure that we want to retain our existing business. So one of the things that we do is we have our business retention and expansion program. We meet with existing businesses. We want to hear from them. What's good, what's not good, whether it's our zoning ordinance, our building permit process, things of that nature. We want to hear from them. It might be transportation issues. So in 2023, I've listed the businesses that we have visited with. And Jessica usually attends those with me, so that's very helpful because as we've discussed, we're part of a region, and she's able to bring, if the county has resources, whether it's a revolving loan fund program, whatever it may be, we have that too. She's able to bring those resources to the table as well as other ones that she comes, has knowledge of too. So I find those very, very useful and beneficial. One of the things that we have been hearing from most of the companies is labor force, and that's no surprise. It's finding qualified workers, retaining them. So some of the projects that our Big Lake Economic Development Authority is working on, as we call it, BLEDA, is this redevelopment of different sites. BLEDA at times will acquire properties that are challenging, that the private market hasn't picked up for whatever reason. Maybe there's potential contamination, maybe it's too small. So this is a property that was actually acquired in 2022 by BLEDA. It's located south of Highway 10. McDonald's there is to the northwest, to give you some perspectives on where it's located. The environmental review has been completed, as well as the the TIF analysis inspection report. So this is set up for potentially a future TIF project. It doesn't mean that that's what it's going to be, but it is set up for that, and it's a future redevelopment project. If you look at the site, it's quite narrow, so likely, and then the railroad is also to the north there, so likely what would be needed is for us to acquire, and I shouldn't say us, whether it could be private or BLEDA, to acquire additional property to make it an actual doable redevelopment site. So acquire additional property to the south, for example, and then there's a roadway that could be vacated. Here is an infill development project. It's surrounded by development, so that's why it's called infill. It's vacant. It's just west of our municipal liquor store. BLEDA sold that this last year in August to Blackbird Laundry Corporation, which is also known as Options, which you all know who Options are, or is, excuse me. And that is for development of for a two-story laundromat on the ground level, and then 2 apartments on the upper level, so a mixed-use development. So that's going to be a nice project. That is planned to start construction in spring of 2024. And just some background on housing development and Big Lake. So far, year-to-date, we've issued 26 permits. That's pretty consistent with 2022. Recently in August, the completion of Marketplace Crossings, which is a 60-unit market rate and affordable housing apartment building, was completed. And then Goldenrod Glen, as it's referred to, is a 74 senior affordable apartment building that is planned to be built this winter, to start construction on that. And that's by Aon Development. And that will be located by the North Star Station, is where that will be located. And then as far as single family, Prairie Meadows 3rd Edition, they've completed some phases within that, and there's a 4th edition that potentially could start this winter yet or this spring. So we've been in communication with that developer in regards to that. And then some background on our commercial and industrial development. Big Lake Car Condos, that's a luxury car garage. And the first and second phase were completed on that. And the third phase was recently approved, and they actually started construction on that. I'm gonna go back. Thank you. Yeah, there we go. And the building that's located, or known as the former Montessori school, it houses now beautiful dermatology, and is actually still undergoing extensive renovation. It will actually house multiple clinicians. And then Jerry's of Elk River, they opened up a new indoor antique and collector vehicle dealership. So that's a new build. And Mega Storage USA, I'm sure you've all noticed that. We've got lots of folks that reached out to us, what happened to the trees, what's going on there. So that's near Lisi Medical. That construction is underway. And then also Nord Excavation, that's also a new build. That is underway as well. Nearing completion on that project. And then North Star Vehicle Maintenance Facility, they're actually doing a small addition. So that site and building plan is currently under review. And then Dollar General, they submitted a site and building plan for a new store just west of our Lakeside Park. It's known as the former A&W site.
The Mega Mini Storage, is that large storage like RVs?
Mm-hmm, it
like
is.
that? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's one that I keep getting calls on inquiries about.
Okay.
What the ability like, so that's nice to see that. Some space for that.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a picture actually of Mega Storage there for you. So still under construction, but.
Do you want to talk about the zoning in Nord Excavation, how the change in zoning helped those projects? Yeah, so that was prior to me starting with the city of Big Lake, so I'm not sure on the time frame, but essentially it was recognized that the city of Big Lake needed a more flexible zoning area. So they created, at that time, it's actually switched now to I-3, but at that time they created a new industrial zoning called Industrial I-4. And it allows for more flexibility with building materials and outdoor storage, which was needed. I mean, the market was calling for it. So that was created in response to that. And that's the Nord Excavation, that picture right there that I mentioned, they're nearing completion. That's an example of where that's located. So they'll be able to have outdoor storage. And then we have the Big Lake Industrial Park. This industrial park, which is north of like Cargill, other businesses in there as well, as you can see, that are built up to the south. But this is actually owned by the city of Big Lake and Big Lake Township. So it's a unique situation here. But we do have available lots that we are marketing. They're shovel-ready utilities. You can see the larger portion is just over, or just about 16 acres, but that's something that if someone wanted to split it, they could do that pretty easily, or if there's someone that wanted to come, make it larger and attach that 2.5 acre to the south there on the L, if you will, they could do that too. So definitely opportunity for new industrial manufacturing or what have you, could go there.
And what's the cost of that property?
It's $1. Thank you for asking that. There are outstanding assessments that are due on it, so they would have to pay those.
And no.
But those are pretty minimal.
And I believe no other financing, options are available at that point. There's no TIF for tax abatement or anything like that.
That is true, because we would sell it for $1, would not be able to tap into TIF or a tax abatement. And then I just want to mention the great programming and recreation that we have within the city. This kind of lends itself to quality of life. We have our farmers market, the summer season, which is held June through August. And then our winter market is on the third Saturday of the month, beginning in November. So this Saturday is actually our first winter market. I encourage you to check that out. It's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at City Hall. And then we have our Music in the Park series, and that's held June through early August at Lakeside Park. Well attended, great series. And then we also do our Movie in the Park. We actually hold 2 movies in the spring and then 1 in the fall. So wanted to share that because those are things that increase your quality of life and are marketable too. So that's actually all I have.
Can you go back to the industrial park picture? One thing that's unique about cities and counties, or difference between cities and counties, cities can sell it for whatever they want for an economic development purpose. Counties have to sell it at market value. So we cannot sell land at $1 like the city can. So it's kind of interesting how there's different rules for different municipalities.
Well, you see, cities full having properties. And
They have a lot more flexibility than we do to negotiate on a land price. We have to get an appraisal.
Can we lease it for $1?
We could lease it for $1. We can sell it to a city for $1, but if we're going to sell it to a private entity, we have to sell it at market value. But the leasing it, that's an interesting question.
Well, evidently, we're not overvalued at $1 for market value because it's still there. So.
That's a good point.
We might be dropping to 75 cents. Spurs a little activity up there.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Therese. Any questions? All right, we'll move on to the Housing Summit recap. I was in attendance. It was a fantastic event. Can't say enough about how that was set up and organized and presented, and Jessica and the whole team that was.
Rayanne Danielowski
is now joining.
Enjoy. No, it was very, very well run, so, and with encouragement.
Good, thank you. So I just have a few, it's a lot of paper to look at, and I didn't print it all off because I know how much everyone loves to get a stack of paper when they leave a meeting, but I will email out all of the attachments that I have up here.
You're gonna get it anyway.
You're gonna get it anyway. You can put it in a virtual file. You won't have to carry it with you. So the first thing that I want to go over, this is actually from Slido, and there's a couple pages in here that I wanted to cover. So if you could advance the slide, Chrissy. Oh, yeah, I'll take that.
Is it a PDF though?
Oh, okay. So the first thing, these are my questions, so we'll go to the, actually 2. We'll go forward 2. That was my little word cloud to get everyone warmed up. So I know, Andrew, you were inquiring as to the makeup of people in the room for that event. This is our makeup. There were 76 people that responded to this question. So I feel like we had a pretty good representation of the industry professionals in the room. And then, Christy, if you wanted to go to the next one. So I'll just give you a second to kind of read through this. This was after my presentation, And I asked, given these market conditions, what's your idea to increase housing in Sherburne County? So as I was going through all the data that we collected data through Slido, which is this. We asked 4 questions upon registration, which we collected a lot of information from. We had 2 idea polls, which I'll go through also. And then we also had the feedback survey at the end, and then just the overall meeting. So there's a ton of information to go through, and I don't want it to be my own interpretation of what is important to pull out of that. So what I would like to do, I mean, I'd be happy to go through it, and I have, and I will continue to, but I would like to pull out pieces like this and send it with you guys to just kind of review and mull over in between EDA meetings and come back with what you took away from it and what you think is important. So it's not just my interpretation. So this list here is the group's ideas on their ideas on how to increase access on housing in Sherburne County. And there were some pretty prominent themes, I would say, as we continue to go through this data. So Chrissy, I don't, if you want to go to
Hey, before you go, just a quick question. What does LGU stand for?
local government unit.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So this one, Chrissy, will actually, here I numbered them in order for you, and I'm gonna switch the order. Can you open up the third one?
Of the Word document?
Yeah.
The second.
No, I want registration question summary. Yeah. Okay, so this list here, this is the one that's in front of you. This is a slimmed down, trimmed down version of the questions that were asked upon registration. And I have the full entire list. It's rather lengthy, and I'll send it out in an email. But just for the sake of time here, to just kind of go over some of the highlighted areas that seem to be repetitive within those question categories. So the first question we asked, we know there are state regulations that make housing development in Minnesota expensive. In your opinion, what could local government do to help offset those costs? We've heard a lot of lower barrier costs for development and redevelopment, better utilized tax incentives. There are communities that are using TIF and or abatement or they have dollars to help offset SAC and WAC for housing. So as we think about moving forward, just ideas that could be on the table. Discounted land came up quite a bit. Incentives to builders to build small homes. I think we all heard that those smaller lot sizes are very, very desirable to developers. I've had, I think, 3 different developers reach out to me after the housing summit inquiring about smaller lot sizes. There was one that was inquiring about smaller lot sizes. There was one that was talking about that land in Becker. And then there's an 80-acre parcel in Becker Township that was also being looked at by another developer. So lots of interest there. Smaller lot sizes, again, was their reason for calling. So you're gonna have to work on that ordinance there, Mark, if possible. And then there was also a suggestion to remove taxes for first-time homebuyers. So there is actually I'm like dying of heat stroke here, sorry. There's actually a program that was done in Fergus Falls called the Big Build. And Nataya from the GSDC, she's the president and CEO of the GSDC, sent me the framework of that program. And they did remove taxes for first-time home buyers for, I want to say, like the first 5 years or up to $10,000 or something like that. So it was a pretty the program was like 2 pages long. It wasn't lengthy or complicated. It was pretty cut and dry. So that's just an idea. thrown out there. And then another thing that came up, and I was actually talking to Rayanne about this at the social hour afterwards, was a streamlined process. Could there be some sort of a streamlined or like express lane if there's a site that's, people are looking at for development and they come in with the plan ready to go? I mean, is there like a express lane that we can put them on to get their permitting completed instead of having to go through everything over and over again? So that was, I don't know what that looks like. It was just a topic of conversation. But timing was definitely something that came up because time is money. What other tools and incentives do communities have that are attractive? Again, a lot of the same recurring themes. The next one, what can Sherburne County do to create a better environment that will spur housing development? It's a lot of the same reoccurring themes, but one thing that's not on here was this is where there were comments about, this is a good start. Having this conversation is a good place to start. So the industry was really happy to be there and be talking to us. And then, believe it or not, the Create a Local Housing Trust Fund, that was not my comment. That was somebody else's. So I was excited to see that. I was like, oh, someone else knows what it is and has dealt with one of these. So it wasn't me, I promise that. But that is, one of those vehicles that if you ever were to look at doing abating the taxes for first-time home buyers, that is a vehicle that you could do that through. What are two challenges that prevent affordable single-family development? One thing that came up a lot was the misconceptions on what affordable is still prevalent. And there was more to that sentence. That was the whole, people think it's Section 8 housing, and that really doesn't exist. It's a community education piece that sometimes those get kiboshed because of the misconception of what affordable housing is. And again, development costs and lot sizing. So we can take this information and mull it over, and I guess I would like to open it up and see what thoughts people have. Thoughts and ideas.
At our next meeting, we'll have our housing study consultant be in attendance. So if we have any questions or we want to draft the housing study, the next step, we can talk about what questions we want to ask.
What else do we have on the agenda for next month? Anything that is pressing?
That's it.
Can we set aside the whole meeting because as you said, there's a lot of information to go through here. Then we could take the month, go through that, develop questions, and maybe better utilize our time, and we'll have additional information also that'll probably tie in, and we just keep the meeting to the housing sector. Mm-hmm. Instead of trying to think off the cuff here.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of information to just come in and be like, oh, here it is, what should we do with it? So I'm glad to hear that, because I would really like everyone to have the opportunity to thoughtfully consider the information that was given to us. And then too, Ken, if, I'd be happy to meet and come up with some good discussion questions as we're going through. And please, as a group, as you're reviewing throughout the month, if there's something that you want to discuss further, just send me an email and I'll make sure that we get it on our list of things to discuss so that you don't got to try to remember it throughout the month. I'd be happy to keep kind of an ongoing list.
Do we want to just keep it as a discussion, or do we want to make any action to do items from that meeting that we want to make as part of a goal, or what is your thought?
Yeah. Oh, I think whatever comes from the discussion, if the group, wants to move forward with some actionable things, then decide it. Yeah, definitely.
Mr. Sheriff?
Yes, Madam Commissioner.
Thank you. Sorry I can't be there in person. My husband had shoulder surgery, so I'm here also, I guess, serving as a nurse. Anyways, I love the idea of having that discussion next month and dedicating the whole time to that. My only thought is, and I love all of the things that came from the summit, but we need to make sure that we have the entities that would be a part of these possible implementations at the table. So I'd like to make sure that we have city people, and I know Mark represents the majority of the townships, so I'm not necessarily thinking that we need individual townships right now because Mark is kind of that guide. So I'd like to make sure, because we can sit around a table and have all these great ideas, but it's the local units of government that have to be involved to implement the thought process.
Yeah, I agree with your thought process. I'm just thinking about the timing. You know, typically we have an hour where we're gonna have a lot of information to go through. I wonder if and there again, I'm just throwing this out for discussion, if we don't digest the material internally and, you know, maybe pick out, you know, if there is actionable items or whatever, our thoughts in, and then bring in, so we have a little bit better focus on what we got out of it, and then bring in the other municipalities to discuss. Because if we have everybody here at the table just to go through the information, I don't know if we're gonna get through it.
Okay. I did just want to point that out, that without them on board, we can talk this to death, and I don't know what is going to come of it.
You know, absolutely correct, and, you know, like I said, with the amount of information, it was a 4-hour gathering, and it was,
Yeah.
it was information all the way through, where even being there, I don't remember everything that was discussed. So, however you guys feel, but we could break this down into, you know, if we're gonna stay on, if we're still focused on housing, as part of our strategic plan, and this is the one we're tackling right now, we dedicate the time, you know, if it takes 2 months or 3 months of meetings, and do it that way.
Well, just as a suggestion,
And
so if we go through the meeting with this group next month, and to your point on follow-on actions, to make sure there's actions to follow, we can divide those actions into actions that center around the cities, actions that we can do, you know, at the county level, and we can set up the follow-on meetings to focus that way, so that we bring those in, because Commissioner Dolanowski is absolutely right. We have to include the cities in this, or nothing gets done. But we just stage it that way, so that we're focused, so we're not wasting the city's personnel's time either. It's a very focused meeting.
So maybe next month we make the strategic plan within the strategic plan. We make the strategic plan for finishing out the housing part of it.
How do you want the consultant to fit in? I was thinking maybe the first 10 minutes, he gives us what a refresh typically looks like, and then we could follow up with questions, so, okay.
Yeah, I think that'd be.
If I could just add, because I've been looking through scopes of service recently and kind of looking at RFPs for updating our own codes and regulations. And, you know, the housing study was critical when I was doing the comprehensive plan update. We've all utilized it. Are there things that we could ask of the consultant, like, you know, we hear about SAC and WAC fees, all the differences between our cities? Is that something that a housing study could almost incorporate into their scope of work, an evaluation between Becker, Big Lake, Zimmerman, to understand what those fees are?
They can do whatever we ask them to,
They
Mark.
can, you know, the value, if we're trying to pull this in to understand where they're at,
Mr. Chair?
it'd be really useful information to have it broadly, kind of like a real snapshot of where we're at in building in Sherburne County. It's just a thought on that.
Yes, Rayanne.
Yeah, I think that is a good idea. I can tell you a simple answer is each city has different investments they've made in their infrastructure. Becker doesn't have a water treatment plant. Big Lake does. Becker has not done an expansion that I'm aware of. Big Lake is in the process of doing a $40 million expansion on an already cost. So those are where those cost differences come in at. And it's also the tax base that is charged with paying that. But if that is something that can be better shown through the person we're working with and doing our housing study, but it is all to do with what the various jurisdictions have invested in that infrastructure and water and sewer, and the cost and the price tag attached to it. when we get compared to Monticello, that is getting ready to put a water treatment plant in. I think I heard the number is $40 million. The power plant will pay for half of that because they pay 50% of the tax base in the city of Monticello. A lot of communities don't have that kind of a sugar daddy in there. Sorry about that.
All right. Thanks,
Connotation. But anyways, yes, I just wanted to make sure too that we put on our radar, there is a lot of federal money right now that was put out for housing. I think there's some state money. I really don't want to miss that window of opportunity. So I'd like to see us figure out how we can be a part of assisting the various local units of government to maybe be able to capitalize on that opportunity. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, just maybe a third then set of actions, because we talked about, you know, actions focused around the cities, around the county. A third set of actions that we could do next week would be questions that we would like to have answered by the housing study. And that way we have an opportunity to kind of organize those a little bit, and give, once again, a little more pointed direction to the consultant.
Such a good tool, and it's invested in and then used properly, versus just, hey, what are the numbers again? We give our numbers, but what are some of the obstacles and barriers?
And typically, the Initiative Foundation has helped us pay for half that study, so I'm hoping they would do that again.
So then, after we would get a presentation from the consultant, I know initially we kind of thought a housing study refresh would be adequate, but I don't know if that's,
maybe not.
Yeah, after this conversation and hearing the value of what a housing study brings, that may be something to consider again too.
But I think it's important, if we're going to pay for more than just a refresh, we need to give them very specific direction on the questions that we want answered. Otherwise, you're just paying for a city to sit on a shelf. So if we can be very direct and very pointed on that, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
All right, well, Jessica, I think you're taking us home, so you got the talking stick.
Okay, so let me get the papers organized again. I talked about that. The next paper that I wanted to cover was the ideas. So I had 2 ideas. We got more feedback on the first idea than the second one because I forgot to remind the group that I switched the idea at our 5-minute stretch break. So the first idea was what are some barriers moving forward with housing development in either townships and cities in Sherburne County, and this was actually one of Mark's questions. So there's the list out there, and like I said, a lot of it is redundant from question to question. We certainly have recurring themes. Rayanne's absolutely right, there is a lot of funding out there right now for housing, and in that omnibus bill, so funding and reducing costs and things like that keep coming up. I think it would be a good idea for us as we sift through this information to figure out, you know, how it is that we're gonna, I want to use the word participate, but Dan doesn't like that word, how it is that we're gonna try to troubleshoot the housing issues in Sherburne County and then go after funds that can do that. So that was our ideas list. The second one was key takeaways from the housing summit. That was another thing. ADUs came up quite a bit too, accessory dwelling units. And rentals and Airbnbs was another thing that came up. And HOAs.
Thank God that was included, I was getting worried.
And HOAs.
I want to meet her, I do. She was in another room, but I want to meet her.
And HOAs. I just got the recording back for the meeting yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to review it. I got it back yesterday afternoon. But I will share it with the group. Our IT, Adam, I think he's over in another room, but I can't thank him enough. Like the video, the recording stopped at 4 hours and then it picked back up in a second recording for like the last 10 or 15 minutes of the summit, which was a good portion of the panel. So he took it and skimmed out all the dead noise on the beginning and the end and combined the videos and polished it up. So we just got that back yesterday, and I'll share that with the group too. And then we also have, are there the feedback surveys? Did I include that, Chrissy, in an attachment? Yeah, so we got our feedback surveys. I think there's 25 of them here. I'll send those out to you guys too. We asked can you just scroll down just a little bit? View some. Some of them, people just filled out a couple questions, and then some of them were very thorough. I would say our average rating for the summit was probably a 9 from all the feedback that we got. So that was really exciting to see people found value in being there. When you put on something that's 4 hours, you really hope you're not wasting people's time. So I was really happy to see that. And then this one's actually really comical. Okay, so
Jesus.
keep scrolling. So I guess next steps, I also have a suggestion on someone that I would like to bring in to talk to us. The Minnesota Housing Partnership. So I had reached out to them back before the housing summit. And my email to her was that we were having a housing summit in November, and we're hoping to gather information from local builders, developers, realtors, lenders, what Sherburne County can do to better improve housing access, affordability, and development. And then we would like to have them come up and do a presentation to our EDA to inform the group on what the Minnesota Housing Partnership does and how we could possibly partner to help advance our new goals and involvement in housing. So the Minnesota Housing Partnership, they offer I don't know if I want to call it consultation services, but like on their website it says, does your organization have ideas on what to do with housing, or, you know, gather information but don't know exactly what the best thing to do is or what, and so this is what they do. I just really think it'd be great to have them come in and kind of give us their ideas. So if you'd be open to a presentation from the Minnesota Housing Partnership, they are going to be probably trying to sell us their services, but that may not necessarily be a bad thing because they're really experts in housing in Minnesota and standing up different types of programs, including like a housing trust fund or a land trust or other things like that that we're considering, and none of us are real experts in, but they are.
Would they charge us to come and do a presentation, or?
Not to do a presentation, no.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I think there's value in that. I mean, we need the information before we can turn it into knowledge, so we're still in the information gathering process.
Okay. So I'll arrange for them to come too. As for the housing summit, that's the information that I have for now. And like I said, I'll send that out in an email to you guys to go through it in more detail. We had 92 people attend the housing summit. There were, I think, 103 or 104 that registered by like Friday morning at 10 a.m. Then we had to shut it off because we were getting a little panicky as far as space is concerned. To have that many people register and then have 92 people still attend, that's an excellent turnout rate. We weren't expecting that. We were expecting maybe like a 65 to 70% turnout rate. We also had a photographer, so in the email I'll send the link to the photos. So that's kind of fun to see the photos of our day, and they're bought and paid for, so if you wanted to take one and share one or whatever, that's totally fine. So that's the housing summit recap. Any questions?
Do you want to mention anything just with your?
Well, just, I've been giving it a little bit of thought as far as like, developing in that. If we're trying to go for affordable housing, especially in the townships, I think that, you know, getting a bigger supply of the 1 acre lots, which was the thing. But, was there also gonna be more like dedicated space, kind of like how the clusters are, for using like it's set aside land that just basically nothing gets done with or not?
You know, the comprehensive plan basically acknowledged that there's this need, you know, there's a correlation between lot sizes and affordable housing. So the comprehensive plan acknowledges that. And at the same time, there's that balance that we're trying to strike. You know, there's a real character of Sherburne County, the quality of life that we have in Sherburne County. In part comes because we do have some space. We do have that elbow room as, you know, was discussed at that meeting. And then also the natural resources. And what the ordinance is going to look like, I'm an open book on that. And I'm really trying to listen as much as possible. I had a really good conversation with one of the surveyors who you work with closely, you know, about what it looks like in Sherburne County, you know, because it's not necessarily going to look like what it does in Ramsey. It's not necessarily going to look like what it is. And Elk River might have some similarities, I think. There might be some opportunities, you know, similarities in Elk River. Christian Builders talked about, you know, their success with 1.5 acre lots and creating highly, you know, desirable lots also. You know, so there needs to be that flexibility. So our ordinance isn't set in stone. We're, you know, I'm gonna work with, you know, really this entire group, you know, that was participating in the housing summit to try and identify what needs to be in an ordinance, because it's gonna be a PUD ordinance for residential subdivision. Right now, our PUD ordinance is unattainable for most people. No one's approached it, no one's attempted to do it, and it was done in part in response to cluster development. And so we're going away from cluster. It's going to be, you know, well and septic. So direct answer to your question. No, it's not going to be tied to open space, but we are going to look at properties and try and identify what resources exist there. Is there some kind of balance that we need to strike? So it's not just opening the door up to 1 acre lots everywhere in our townships, because we have to convince our townships, because the broad feedback that we got from township officials in the public, they like the 2.5 acre lots and said, we got ours, so, you know, keep us the way it is. So you have to also convince people that this is going to be a good form of development, that it's going to bring in that missing middle of Sherburne County.
Right. Well, the other thing that I worry about too, as far as going down to 1 acre lots, if we don't put a house size on it, I mean, we're gonna end up with, so like our lots in Becker, they're like 120, right? So if we were to do 1 acre lots and then not have a cap size on the house size, we're just gonna end up with the same houses again and still not getting.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, I think our
So
I think our lot prices would go down to probably 90,000, about 90,000. But I mean, it's gonna be a lot more profitable for the developer, and you're just gonna still continue getting the bigger houses. I think in that particular type of a property, maybe like a field type development, you know, or as a cornfield before, that you might see, you know, where they try to go for the you know, starter home type things. But if that's what if that's what the objective is trying to
be done through a PUD. You can't write that, you can't write square foot size in the ordinance, so it'd have to be a PUD project.
It'd probably be a PUD. I don't know where we would be looking to, because we do need to get those, you know, the split levels. When I first started in Sherburne County in early 2000s, you saw these split level homes that were, you know, 1,500 square feet, whatever that dimension was, 2-car garage. That was a common type of development. That has gone away now for the houses that are being constructed, in part because of the cost of the land. But what I'm hearing Todd say is that even if we went down to the smaller acres, we're still gonna get those 3,500 square foot homes on those lots, and that's not solving the issue.
Of affordability.
Yeah, affordability. So how do we manage that?
Well, I don't know, is it solving I mean, if that's what the market is calling for,
The market's,
I mean, the builders know what their clientele are, you know, they're gonna build what they can sell, so.
I think there's a flexibility in making it available. So there's different types of areas, you know. Pinecrest West was a subdivision down in Orac Township, very, you know, it's a beautiful subdivision. And that maybe could have benefited from smaller lots. You know, you could have maybe got more opportunities to build more houses out there, and it wouldn't have really impacted the feel of that subdivision. And then you get closer into the city limits, those kind of growth, maybe not necessarily growth areas, because there's not city sewer and water coming out there, but maybe that's where we can go down to that 1 acre, and they're less desirable state housing. Maybe that's where you can accomplish. So I think there's a variety of opportunities for housing. through the PUD section to allow for, higher value homes, but also that middle, and you have to keep it flexible throughout the townships. But I have to convince townships and I have to work with the cities to make sure that we're not encroaching on their growth areas and that the townships are on board with this type of development. And that's kind of the challenge that falls in zoning's lap, is communicating that and getting them to understand that this isn't, the term affordable housing isn't Section 8, it's making housing an option. And it's bringing back builders like Progressive and Price Right, who did a lot of building, for years in our county, but have moved out of our county because of expense associated with the type of homes that they're building. We gotta try and find ways to bring those builders back into our townships.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Rand?
We do have a few from the past. I mean, I always look to when we talk about these smaller lot sizes developed in township. I mean, we have one example of a PUD township development right in Big Lake off of County Road 43. I think it's a good thing to look at the ones that have been done in the past. What did we see overall the challenges are? That one's been around long enough to understand what are the challenges now when the well and septic need to be possibly upgraded, or for sure the septic. So let's look at what we've done in the past and how it might have worked, for whatever reason gone away from it, but let's learn from what we have. And part of the other one is some of the land developments that were done with those shared septics. That's become a four-letter word because of the issues that go along with a shared septic system, because people don't understand that you have to contribute to the cost to maintain that system, and there's no way legally that you can attach it like a city can to property taxes for the maintenance and service of that septic system. So is it something we could advocate for, some more flexibility to be able to, if you're going to put a shared septic into a development, the legislature possibly can do something to be able to allow whatever the costs are associated with the maintenance of that system to go onto people's property taxes. Because people move out from the cities, they don't have a clue as to how these septic systems work and what they need to keep them in good shape.
Thank you, Rand. I don't think clusters are really the vocal point of your ordinance. We're not going back there, are we, Mark?
No, we discuss clusters. We realize that they're out there.
They're a
The
cluster.
comprehensive plan acknowledges them and, does say, we have to manage them into the future and work with our townships that do have them and the developments that do have them. But it's not, the opportunity for a shared system does show up, and that might go into kind of like when we were talking about some of our hamlets and senior housing options on smaller, we're not talking about a 20-acre unit development. We're talking about a small development inside a hamlet. Maybe they could find a shared space for their drain field. Each one has their own tank, but they have a shared space for a drain field, and that's a little more manageable.
Townhome development out there or something like that.
So that was something in our hamlets. We think that there might be some opportunities for that, and there was a desire from that from people in those areas.
When was the last time we had a cluster approved?
It probably would have been 2007, I think. Yeah.
So we haven't had one in 16 years.
No, and what we wrote into the ordinance around 2000, because the recession came right along with it, was that you had to have a municipal service district. So essentially, a taxing authority had to go in. So a township would have to be part of a cluster system, or the county would have to be a part of the management of that, long-term management of that septic system, and no one's bought into that. Baldwin Township has gone through and made at least one of their cluster subdivisions municipal service district, so there are some opportunities for funding and supporting that long-term, because that's a problem that we have, and that's what we have. We have a lot of those out there, and what's going to happen with them in the future, so we're still monitoring and paying attention to those and trying to find solutions.
Mr. Chair.
Most aren't stuck.
Yes, Madam Commissioner.
And isn't the Aspen development in Big Lake Township struggling right now and in communication with Big Lake Township into what they need to be doing because their system is failing?
Yes, that's accurate. And so I steered them to Baldwin Township because they've had some success in dealing with this. It just because it was right in front of them and they had to sort it out.
So one thing I've been thinking about as far as the overall housing in Sherburne County is, we talk about going down, we talk about the 1 acre lots for what we control. But I don't think we have a comprehensive, not a comprehensive plan in the sense of your comprehensive plan, but an overall comprehensive plan for the county, unless we specifically include the towns, because we also have to think about those lot sizes that are able to go less than an acre, right? So getting to half-acre lot sizes, which you can do in, you know, in some of the cities, because that then starts to address that entry-level house. And so we need to know where, I think we need to know where those are an opportunity, and how that dovetails in then to our comprehensive plan.
And I think that housing study could help. There's another area, yeah, if you refine that question, work with our cities to make sure what's relevant for the cities to know, because you want, the hope is that, you know, someone can use it, not just staff, but a builder, a developer who's looking at Sherburne County for future development. What's the landscape out there? And I think that, you know, housing study could provide that. I know most cities have done housing studies, but now try and give it up, the county umbrella to it, so it's covering the entirety of the county.
Yeah, because you have to stratify the housing. It's not just what we have control over, it's what's within the cities as well.
But a lot of
that gets to the low end.
the, from what I've understood, and we've never done anything in a city, but right now, in most cities, before you even buy the land, the construction cost is gonna be about $57,000 per lot. I mean, you sack and whack roads and everything else, you're at 57 before you even buy any dirt. You gotta pay for the dirt, so, you know, you're still gonna be up in that. That's why I like Progressive and everybody's jumping on that township thing, because, you know, building out in there without the city sewer and water, and that is terribly less. I think a field lot, you'd get it down to probably 60,000 for selling wise.
Yeah, and that's where, you know, some of these ideas of what we can do, you know, to help supplement, you know, to help offset some of that expense.
Right,
I think
yeah, you're gonna have to
what
offset
I've been hearing from the professionals in that industry, are there things that could be done, you know, through the housing trust that would, right? Is there things that can be done through that could help kind of balance the playing field? Because yes, I get people calling me wanting to exit out of cities and do development, you know, under township standards because of the expense, but we know where the growth is going long-term, you know, projected growth. It's around our cities. The cities need to continue to grow. So how do we continue to manage and support that?
Well, then I think that's one of the questions that we have to address. What does it look like in the townships? And then we have to be very pointed in, because if the issue is sack and whack, we also know on the other hand, on the other side, that we have had numerous failures on shared systems. So, you know, I think so we have to then be very pointed in what does that look like and how do we ensure that doesn't happen in the future, because we can't set ourselves up for, you know, I know that the expense,
Failure.
I know that the expense in Elk River right now on connecting some of those failed systems in the north of Elk River is extensive. Now, fortunately, they got some grants for it, but we can't set those future developments up for failure either.
Right. So I think, from the discussion today, kind of lends weight to why we can't rush through this. There's so many different things to look at, so many different, considerations when we're trying to take the county as a whole that, you know, I'd really encourage us to take the time to, get all the information we possibly can before we start making actionable items, because we're just not knowledgeable enough at this point. If it takes 3 months for it, that's what it takes, but otherwise we've done a lot of work for nothing. And learning off of past successes and failures obviously is a good area too, but it's real easy to get caught up in the emotional aspect when people say affordable housing and housing. I mean, we haven't even, I mean, very easily done, and I'm sure we have it, you know, but what is an affordable house? Okay, I mean, until you can get that number down, that affordable house, per capita income based off ratio, you know, 30% to your house cost, right? You got this all the time. I mean, that's where we start, so that is a factual basis, okay? Otherwise, it's all subjective as to what's affordable to me is not affordable, you know. Like I always say, they can afford much more up on their pheasant ranch than I can on mine, so.
Is that, you know, the affordability question, does it vary, you know, city to city? You know, is there a lot of variations in the county as far as affordability? That definition, so when someone asked me what affordable or what I mean by missing middle, I had a definition in my head for what it meant for Sherburne County, but does that definition differ, you know, from
But I don't
different
know if
to?
we can, how far down and we can get in that information, or if we have to take it as a whole that median income is X, median house price needs to be, or this is the target to get to. The other thing, and I'll apologize for this because it's more of a personal take, but, grants are great, they're good, obviously, you know, it's that question, but you do have to realize that the more money we bring in off of grants and subsidies and stuff like that to offset housing costs, we become part of the housing cost problem, not the solution. And if we're okay with that, because I know this is a very, very tough consideration, but long-term, we're not doing anything to bring housing costs down. We're doing everything we can to keep them up. And we're just financing those increases through the tax base instead of the traditional consumer base. So,
Mr. Chair?
Rayanne, call me Ken.
We have, I've had the pleasure of having conversations with, Ken on these, topics, and I totally agree with what he's saying in regards to the grants and stuff, but they're out there. And until that process totally goes away and nobody's gonna utilize any of those federal and state funds, that's a win then, I guess. But as long as they're out there and somebody's gonna come to the table and use that, I want to make sure we're at the table using what we can to move our needle as well. So to me, I understand the fundamental thought of it. I get it. I'm a taxpayer, but that money's out there. It's already been paid for through our taxes, and somebody's going to get it. So until that field changes and the ball is reconfigured, I'll pick that ball up.
I would agree that that's probably where we're gonna land, and I didn't bring it up for that reason, as long as there's an understanding of that. It's one of those things where, yes, some of us are probably gonna have to choke back the phlegm and vote yes, because it's.
Well, there's nothing wrong with doing a two-pronged approach, where we look at the grants that are available, but also look at plans to try to drive down the structural cost of housing. So we can do both. Right?
Absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
more
One other thing.
You got 2 minutes.
One other thing 2 minutes, I'm sorry. One other thing I wanted to mention in regards to moving the needle, working with the cities on the cost to develop, to Todd's point. There's opportunities, I think, that we could possibly work with in regards to not only the water and sewer infrastructure, it's the roads. Every developer, at least for the city of Big Lake, has to bear those costs on top of, like what Todd said, buying the dirt. What can we do to help? Because right now that dirt is only so much of a tax base. If you can help assist with reducing that cost to that developer to bring in a good amount of houses that will pencil in on that piece of dirt for them to be able to come out profitable and provide us with what we're looking for, I think that's a win in partnership. I know Becker is developing a few things, but the city owned the land. So they were more able to help with cost of acquisition and such.
Sure.
Okay, that's it. I'm sorry. Was I 2 minutes up now?
Well, it wasn't near 2 minutes, it was, but that's okay. Go ahead, Jessica.
Okay, so I have, I'll be quick. I have a couple more things. Not related to housing. So we did our land tour, the Sherburne County land tour. We had Greater MSP come, I think it was October 30th. And we had a bus. We had the city of Elk River, the city of Big Lake, Princeton, and who else was on our bus? St. Cloud, yes. And we started in Elk River. Brent gave us a nice tour through the industrial park and their industrial land. We went up 169 to Princeton. Stacy took us around Princeton, down 95 into Palmer Township. Ate lunch there, came down Becker. They knew a lot about Becker. They're very familiar with Becker. So we just did a high-level overview coming through Becker. And then Therese gave us a great tour of Big Lake. And we're still waiting for the feedback from that, but we did get greater MSP on a bus tour, and they know all of our prime sites in Sherburne County. Second thing, I was approached by the University of Minnesota about a homegrown program, and I did bring it to my County Connect meetings with our city community and economic development staff, and not our staff, I didn't mean it like that, like our buddies, and to see if it was something that they're interested in doing, and the consensus from the group was yes. And so it's a workshop called Homegrown, and the University of Minnesota has the curriculum, and basically the goals of the workshop are for participants to better understand their local entrepreneurial network after the program, to see themselves as part of that network, and then to see a role or a way to engage in the network more intentionally than they did before. So it's basically for professionals or community leaders who are interested in building a more supportive community and network for entrepreneurs. And so what we would like to do is the community and economic development folks from city and myself at our County Connect meeting in probably February, do like a kind of a slim down, trim down version of this workshop. It would be probably about 3 hours. And I would like to have, obviously myself and then a couple members of our EDA attend that with me. And so they, like I said, and then the city would also have a member or two of their EDA also come. And really it's to identify the resources in the area for entrepreneurial growth, to develop a support system and things like that on a more regional basis. And so I'd be looking for volunteers from the group. You don't need to raise your hand today, but if that's something that you'd be interested in serving on, it would be February 15th from 10 to 1 right after EDA, and it could be 1, 2, 3, or 4, the more the merrier. And it's not gonna cost us anything except for probably some pizzas for lunch. We'll feed you, so. And I have a flyer about that, so I'll send that in the email also so you can read a little bit more on what it is. And then there was an example, it was done in Caledonia, of what their flyer looked like and kind of what they got out of it. And it seems like a really cool program. And then that.
Can we finish? Andy's got some information on affordability.
30-second statement. The packet of information on housing that Dan sent out the other day, there's an affordability index in there. If you kind of watch that, that's now for the state. So the affordability index for the state in October was 88%, meaning that at 100%, the median income qualifies to buy the median priced home. So right now the state is at 88. If the EDA wants, I can dig down into that and I can actually get one for the county and get what our.
I would appreciate that.
Okay. Would you like me to email that to Dan and have him send it out, or before the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, I'll get that done today.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Anything else? Then I'd be looking for that last motion.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?